Good evening, sir. I welcome you to our interview on the new education policy that is being hosted by the research cell of Dayanand Sagar University. I am very happy and thankful that you have made out the time today, despite having many other engagements and webinars, to make time for us and share your views and perspectives, which perhaps will help all stakeholders, not only of our university, but also for the academia and the industry at large. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this particular webinar. Thank you so much.
All right. For our viewers, just to give a brief of Dr. S.N. Sridhar, he has a technical background. He has a BE degree from Bangalore University and an ME in aerospace from the Indian Institute of Science and a PhD from IISc. He has an overall 31 years plus of experience, and he has a vast and very accomplished research experience. And I think in the state of Karnataka and Bangalore, Dr. Sridhar is very well known. And I would request him to kindly draw upon his experiences while he's also talking about his perspectives and the policy initiatives that have been done in the form of the new education policy of 2020. Sir has also been awarded with many recognitions, and I think there's a host of awards that he has received from IST, from VTU, and Vocational Excellence Award. So none other than Dr. Sridhar, sir, today deserves the session that I have been doing, that is a series on the interview on the new education policy. So welcome, sir, and our viewers look forward to your perspectives.
Thank you very much, madam, for this for good introduction. And I would like to share my experiences, in terms of today's interview, giving my opinion about NEP 2020. And also we can discuss it in detail with whatever has been released by the Government of India. And in bits and pieces they have released, and I got a summary from them, from UGC itself. So that particular one I'm going to discuss with you. Thank you very much for inviting me, Vodi.
All right. Sir, everybody is knowing about the fact that there's a wonderful initiative by the government. So many things are going to come up. Now, the current thing is to a person in the public domain. In order to understand in brief, although we have got a lot many pointers, what are some of the brief points of the NEP 2020?
Okay, in general public, if you would like to see, many people are wondering about the structure of, how many years you need to study primary, what will happen to PUC, whether plus 12 will be there, etc., and so on. But there is something beyond that. For example, if you look at NEP, it involves a revolutionary change, in the entire education process, starting from primary education to higher education. And it actually looks for holistic development, and actually it is looking for experiential learning to be given to the students right from the primary school up to higher education. And also there is a rigid, at present we have a very rigid separation from art, science, etc. Now this rigid separation will go off. Basically what NEP advocates is, suppose you have taken a particular subject as a major, maybe I'm studying science, you also need to study something from arts, commerce, or whatever it is, including skills. So there will be no rigid separation, something like art, science, commerce, etc., like what you have in PUs and so on. And then there is a lot of emphasis is given for extracurricular activities and vocational training courses as well. And there is one more emphasis which is given here for the mother tongue and local language. So it is stated in that particular system that the primary school up to 6th standard shall be in the mother tongue or the local language, and thereon the medium of instruction. So the medium of instruction for primary school is said to be the mother tongue or the local language, so that the language which it speaks from. That's the one thing which is also a very, very important thing to be taken. And then there is one more emphasis, that is right from the primary education, the inculcation of the skills will be given. So therefore, vocational training starts from 6th grade. So at present, school is something, completely away from the life, but now the life sciences will be included from the 6th standard itself. So in the 6th standard, the child will start actually learning some skills during either vocational courses or as a part of their curriculum, something like pottery, agriculture, or the gardening, etc., and so on. So this is one more welcome thing So the child will be giving a holistic, education instead of going through only the books. And standard at every level will be set for all grades at high schools and schools and also higher education institutions. So at present, actually, you find varieties of syllabus, something like what do you call ICSE, CBSE, state, etc., and so on. Now it is going to be a small merging in the sense that these do exist, but the level of the syllabus which will be set will be almost similar. So there will be a standard which will be set for all this type of things. Now there is one more emphasis which is given, which is really attractive, is teacher training is very intensive, and this actually helps to train the teachers to the expectation of the the government as well as the parents and students. So the pedagogical training will be there, the skill training will be there, and this is going to be very intensive one. Now, if you look at the recruitment and training program as well as promotion, even this also will be seen very rigorously by the new education policy. It wants to set up educational institutions for the training of 4 years degree, which is very rigorous, a tight type of training. After that, there will be sort of recruitment, transparent recruitment guidelines will be coming through. Guidelines for promotion will come through, and all universities as well as the higher education departments as well as the schools are actually promoted to use these guidelines. And there is one more important thing, though at present also we have financial and the mentoring facility for socio-economically disadvantaged section. This is going to be taken by another independent autonomous body. So what it does is, any student who is coming from socio-economically disadvantaged section, they'll be nurtured from the beginning itself, starting from the primary school up to HEI. So that, at present, I think what you are seeing now, see, for example, for engineering or medicine, at present, I think the poor people are very difficult to enter into and get into the education of these, higher educations. But that will not be the case once this NEP comes through. Another attractive thing, what I say for the public is, there is a multiple entry and multiple exit in the degree institutes. See, for example, in the institute, which suppose I say after the 12th standard, a student gets into a college, and if he is unable to continue with the studies after 1 year, he may exit from that particular system of degree by taking a certificate. And then suppose I say he exits at second year, then he will get a certificate of diploma. Suppose he completes all 3 years, then he may get also a degree. But there is one more clarity which I need to make. Many social, the platforms are telling that, the degree will be for 4 years, but it's an optional one. There is a 3-year degree as well as a 4-year degree. A 4-year degree is a holistic degree, and that will be there only for some of the courses, something like maybe engineering or medicine, wherever they are looking at. Otherwise, even that also can be reduced to 3 years. Now, all streams of the study become multidisciplinary. At present, there, something like engineering means engineering only. But you can actually, once this particular NEP comes into picture, engineering will be coupled with many other, inculcation, maybe music or maybe agriculture, maybe foundry, whatever it is, all of them will become multidisciplinary. So this is a multidisciplinary one. People will not be telling that I am an engineer without learning, the neighboring sciences or social sciences, etc. All of them will become one package. And there will be a single body for all higher education, and there will be another body, single body for accreditation. At present, we have UGC, AICTE, and Medical Council, etc., and so on. Now, especially for UGC and AICTE, it is said to be merged together, and there will be a single higher body education. And similarly, at present, we have accreditation, different accreditation process, bodies, something like NAC and the NBA. Now these two will be merged again, and there will be only one body for accreditation of all the higher education institutions. But please remember, accreditation is also now going to come for schools. At present, it is only for polytechnics and higher education institutions. Now that will flow down to the schools. Even the schools have to go through the accreditation process now. Now there is a target which has been set by NEP that adult education should reach by 2030 to 100% literacy in the youth. So at present it is around 50%. They want to reach around 100% literacy in the youth by 2030. And no single discipline university will be there. See, for example, we have engineering and technology universities, medical universities, and specialized universities are there, science universities, etc., and so on. But now, according to NEP, all this will become multidisciplinary universities. For example, an engineering and technology university should adopt and change itself to become multidisciplinary. Maybe a part of medicine it can take, a part of arts it can take, parts of language it can take, and a part of freelance can take. So many things it can take up together. So all of them will become multidisciplinary. Then it is also said that there is an autonomous status to be given to all the colleges by 2035. Let me make it very clear. When we say autonomous status will be given or granted to all the colleges at present, it doesn't mean that universities will not exist. Universities do exist independently. And similarly, all colleges will not be given autonomous status. It is called eligible colleges only, or eligible higher education institutes only will be given autonomous status. That means there will be a standard which is set for these colleges. And if they meet this particular standard, then they will become autonomous. But they want to drive it towards autonomous so that everybody will become independent and then come out. Then what about universities? Now universities will also coexist, and they will have at least 3,000 students catering to wide discipline. Usually the colleges will be a smaller one, but universities will have at least 3,000 students, and they will have wide discipline, means the discipline range will be very, very high. There is one more thing actually. At present we have National Scholarship Portal. This will be strengthened further with actually more funding, and this basically tries to look at the socio-economically disturbed people or the students, and it is going to couple handhold them so that they are going to get a better support from the society as well. And then there is also importance given for effective governance and leadership of HEIs, and there will be research and innovation driven universities will be brought in. Now universities are also will be recognized under 2-3 categories. One category is basically the research and innovation driven universities, means they are more of research driven activities will be taken. Again, multidisciplinary. There is something called teaching driven or the teaching main universities, wherein there is only teaching which is being given. The last identity which you find is basically the degree awarding institutes. They don't call it as university, the degree awarding institutes. So there are 3 categories which they are looking at. The first one is research and innovation driven university, teaching specific universities, and the degree granting institutions. And there is one more important thing which is really attractive. Every village will get a library which is attached to the school in the library. So this is a very, very emphasized move by NEP. So it wants to actually make even others to get use of this library, and therefore everybody will become literate in terms of the current status, etc., and they become more and more literate oriented type of mentality will come through. Now the examinations what are being done, these examinations at present are mainly of the formative assessment. Formative assessment is most of the examinations at present are memory based. You need to study, memorize, and then in the exam you need to just give it out. This will be turned towards formative assessment. What is formative assessment? Formative assessment is, it is just not memory oriented one. They'll be looking at what is the outcome from this education, and that outcome will be measured, and this is called formative assessment. And these formative assessments are all there in a smaller portion at present at higher education. Now this will become a continuous formative assessment. A student will be assessed continuously from the teachers every day or every month. Similarly, his friends is called peer assessment will be done, and again the assessment will be done in the main exams, and the main exams will not be just memory oriented exams. There will be some sort of outcome based exams which they will try to see how much skill you have inculcated with, etc., and so on. And then coming to the examination again, the 10th and 12th grade board assessment will still be there. There will be a board for 10th and 12th. And for both, there will be 2 assessment opportunities. One is a main assessment opportunity. Another one is the optional assessment, which will be for improvement. So a student who wants to actually take both the assessment can take both the assessments. One is a main exam, maybe in the month of March or whenever it comes, so that he will do some performance, and immediately next month itself or within a few days or a few weeks, there will be another improvement examination will be given to them. It is called an improvement exam. And by this, actually, the student can perform better, and the best performance out of the 2 will be taken. And the test will be there only for competitiveness, in the sense that these exams will check only the competitiveness. The skill and others which they are trying to give will be completely tested, in a continuous evaluation or the continuous assessment thing. On the overall, I would say that the new education policy looks at holistic and experiential learning. That is the total, as a bundle, I can say, tell for the public.
Okay, sir. So that was a, in fact, after that, I had questions about the 4-year degree, but you have addressed that in details also. And the next thing which comes is for the stakeholders. Now, what is it in for parents?
Okay, it's a very good question actually. People will be wondering that in what way we can actually contribute, or what do I take away from this particular, the total series. I would say something like this. Look, whenever the education is going to address your own kids, basically that they are looking at holistic, development of the entire student, and therefore the parents will be at a very, very great, benefit in terms of looking at the holistic development of their kids, number one. Number two, if you look at the type of multiple exit and multiple entry type of things at present, for especially for the higher education, no student will be left out as uneducated. See, for example, some students, unfortunately, because they may not be liking that particular subject, will not be able to complete a program within particular year. For example, let me say 3-year degree program. He would have taken more than 6 years to complete it, and finally he will be declared as he is not passed in this particular one, and after 6 years he goes out empty handed at present. But now what happens, the student will come out, suppose I say after the first year he doesn't want to continue with that particular one, he can just come out with a certificate, and this certificates that, suppose I say the student has joined a science program, he will get a certificate in the science program. Similarly, suppose he continues for the second year, and then you complete second year, and then he doesn't want to continue with the third year, he will get a degree certificate. So this helps actually the parents to take the benefit of these types of multiple exits and motivate the students actually to get into the real life. See, suppose somebody wants to earn and then come back, they can earn and come back and then start from the second year again. This is called multiple entry also. This is not highlighted in most of the social media, but there is an advantage that the student can take a certificate, go out, work for 1 or 2 years, get more knowledge or something, or help family, come back for the second year to continue to get his degree in the second year, or continue for the third year and get the final year degree itself, from the diploma to degree. So this is another advantage. Third advantage, which actually I would say for the parents, is because at present it is very difficult for the parents to counsel the students or their kids to actually study particular course. See, for example, everybody is behind engineering or medicine, let me say, then the students beyond their expectation or beyond their interest are being pushed by the parents that you should take engineering or you should take so and so, therefore you will get good placement or the job, etc., and so on. Now the situation will be different. Even if he takes an engineering, the student has to learn the arts and science as well as the other skill oriented courses, and therefore the student will start developing an interest in engineering course plus so on. So it will be less headache for the parents actually also to say that my kid is not interested in engineering, but I'm still pushing it because I want him to become an engineer. It is not so, because all these are going to be merged. The boundary between all these higher education levels like arts, science, commerce, and liberal arts, everything is going to be merged together, and therefore there will be an overlapping. This is another advantage for the parent, and they can look at the holistic development of that. There is one more important thing which I would say, the fee regulation committee is also going to come, and this fee regulation committee is going to impose like what should be the maximum cap or the maximum, the limit for the fee to be collected by any institution at any level. And this is going to be mandatory for all the institutes, and this is going to be a very good boon for the parents. These are the major, the takeaway for the parents. There is one more thing actually, the parent involvement, not exclusively written in NEP, but it is actually intended in that the parent will also be involved in the peer assessment of the kid. Means the assessment from the parent also will be taken into consideration when the marks card is written for that particular kid. This is indirectly written in NEP, not directly, but it is visible from the total length of that which you can see from it. These are the main takeaway for the parents.
So does the academic bank credit, the system of accumulating credits, does it have any linkage also in the fact that when you're talking about that multiple entries and exits, and in that way also help the parent and the student stakeholders?
Exactly. I think you just gave a very good link to continue with that. Very nice, ma'am. Thank you for reminding me. There is something called academic, credit bank (ACB). What is it basically? Suppose I say a student is in particular college and he studies, let me say, 3 subjects or 5 subjects, and each subject having 3 credits. 3 credits is basically 3 hours per week. That's what you mean by 3 credit at present. Later it may be slightly different. For example, he studies physics, let me say. It has got 3 credit and he passes the 3 credit exam with particular grade, and this actually will be in his credit. This will be digitally stored, in the national level, at national level. Suppose he passes the exam of chemistry with something, that also will be stored. And suppose he moves from this and then to the another institute, all the credits will be transferred, because now all the institutes will be of the same, level, because after the accreditation is done, everything will be equal. Not only just moving from one college to another college, also moving from one level to other level. See, for example, first year he gets some credit, takes a break, comes back to second year. Now, whatever the credits he has got, that credit after a break, if he comes, will be added up to the next year. That is what it calls basically as the academic credit banking, and it's a very good system. And parents will be much happier now. I mean, they should not think that my boy is a school drop now and or the college drop and he's not doing anything, etc. Many of them will come back, like this. See, for example, at present, if you look at the movie making or film making, etc., and all that, it is attracting many of our youngsters. I could see basically many youngsters are creating wonderful, creations in terms of movie, short films, etc., and all that. Now, these kids actually can also learn that as a curriculum. Suppose I say he is studying science, but he wants to study, what is called film making. He can do that. Movie making, he can do that, and then take the credit, go to the field, do some work, get some knowledge, come back again. And again, I will tell you one thing more. There is also cross boundary, the transformation, transfer is also possible. Suppose you have taken a science program, you can move to an arts program later in the second year, taking the credit and changing your, the entire courses. Courses means subjects. These are all the major advantages with the NEP.
Okay, so basically, we've been talking about the overview of the NEP till now in the previous segment. We have also covered how it is affecting the student and the parents stakeholders. Now, I would like to ask you about what do you think is the takeaway for faculty members in higher educational institutions?
Okay, it's a very good question. Actually, faculty is separately addressed, and there is a small chapter for the faculty, like what all the faculty support is being given in the NEP. The first one I would like to mention that if the faculty is not good, actually the whole process will completely, it will become a disaster. So therefore, a lot of importance is given for the faculty development. What is a faculty development? See, first of all, at present now we have B.Ed for 3 years. Earlier it was for 1.5 years, etc., and so on. Now this is actually upgraded to 4 years. Now in the 4 years upgradation, what are the things that will be included? It is just not the pedagogy, but also the skills. For example, a teacher who comes out of the B.Ed after 4 years will be coming out with pedagogical skills, also the art skills and other, the side skills which actually he wants to develop. And this is going to make himself as a student when he is studying through the B.Ed course and then comes out. Now, similar training programs are also planned for technical education and higher education faculty members. For example, a teacher who is studying, BSc or BA will also have to go through these training programs. And at present, it is at 2 years, or will be uploaded to again 4 years. Similarly, for technology also, there will be a faculty development program or a faculty development course or a program which actually teachers have to go through that. This is number one. There is one sentence which actually, I just love to state once again to that. This B.Ed colleges or the B.Ed or the Bachelor of Education courses which I mentioned about 4 years program, they have taken it so seriously. A sentence is written that any non-performing B.Ed institutions will be penalized, in the sense that there will be a punishment for any institution, training institutions, teacher training institutions who are not performing better or who is actually giving a very low quality education. Now, this says that the importance given for the faculty. Now, there is another importance that is given for the faculty. Starting from the school, they are going to say that what should be your entry level, the qualification, what are the skills you should have, How do you get actually recruited? So the recruitment policy is going to be completely transparent, and that will be made mandatory at all levels. For example, school level, there will be a particular set of rules and regulations which are transparent, and similarly for college level different, professional courses different, and so on. Now these type of framework will help anybody to tune themselves into that. That is number one. Number two, how is supposed to be career advancement, what I say, promotion for these the teacher will be done. Even those are being laid down, and by 2021 or 2022, now these regulations will be made properly and will be let out to public. And after that, I think in the 2022 itself, it will be implemented. This helps a sort of structure for all types of teachers, starting from primary school up to the final year or the higher education schools as well. And then lot of funding is being given for teacher training programs, number one, also for research and innovation. Now there is one more thing which actually I would like to bring to your notice. Research and innovation is not limited at only higher education institutions like colleges. They want to bring that research and innovation at school level itself, and therefore even the school children along with the teachers can actually are eligible to get the funding for their own small research and innovation projects. This is going to be a real, what you say, renovatory thing type of, the measure in NEP. And lastly, I would say that the faculty who would like to perform in terms of research only, now these people will be given scholarships to continue with their research. They'll be given funding, and these funding will have again transparatory regulations like what will be the type of funding a teacher will get when they want to do some research, and then the outcome will also be converted. There is one more thing which people are trying to look at in the NEP is the outcome from these teachers. So this is outcome driven from the teachers, so there will be an appraisal, and these appraisals are also going to be there from the school teacher up to the higher education teachers, and this will also have some framework. Means at the end of a year, what all the output a teacher has given in terms of teaching, in terms of educating the students, in terms of his the contribution to the enrichment of curriculum or training program, etc., and so on. Whether he has done research, whether he has done some innovation, etc., and so on. So this appraisal is also going to be a transparent and also will be made mandatory starting from school level to college level. So these are the major takeaways for the faculty members.
In terms of the different universities, I think we will also have different the research-based universities and other things. So does it mean that will the scope for collaboration with the top tier institutes like IITs and IIMs now become more realistic? It was there in spirit, but not really happening that much. So what are your views on that?
Yeah, see, for example, when the IITs were actually framed in those years, they were actually looking at giving a very good technological education. But if you see from past 5 years, 6 years, these IITs have developed a lot of online platforms through NPTEL programs and SWAYAM programs and so on. That means the teachers who are supposed to be the best of the lot of the entire nation are not only catering to the students of IITs, now they are catering to the entire community of India. All these courses are free at present, and this will be taken it further, number one. Number two, as you asked me, there is a research innovation university. What is the major structure of this research innovation thing? In the research innovation university, less of teaching will be done for graduation and undergraduation one. Less of teaching, it's not that it's completely away, less of teaching. See, for example, if you look at now Indian Institute of Science, it is at a research innovation university. Most of the time, the faculty there will be involved only in the research and less of teaching will be there. There will be interaction with the students. This interaction will not be a regular, course like or something like that, though they have master degree and PhD. The teaching will be less. There will be more of research, involved research along with the students. One question which you asked, what will be the type of collaboration from this to that? In fact, NEP says even the school children also can take the collaboration with IITs and again the polytechnics, higher education institutions, including universities. So there is a chance that opportunity that all these higher education universities, higher educational institutions are also going to be becoming more and more public friendly, or in other words, they'll become more and more student friendly as well, and there will be a sort of merging, and this merging in terms of collaboration is going to open up. It's a very good point which you just raised it out.
Right. Thank you, sir. And finally, about the regulation landscape. So we are looking at something in the future wherein HECI will have different verticals for standards and regulations, accreditation.
Exactly.
How much will it really help realistically, and how much time will it take for that to be executed?
See, for example, if you just look at these HEIs, which have been a single body for controlling everything, which I was mentioning as the UGC and the AICT will be clubbed together, they're planning to bring it by 2022. Means there will be 2 more years before they can actually merge them to a single body. What is the advantage of making a single body from all this is the first part is actually there are already some commonality between these two. See, for example, if you take up UGC, the salary scales, which we say the UGC scales and AICT scales, they are same. But because of the type of teaching between the two, now these two are different. By merging these two, the regulations become common for all. That means all higher education department faculty will be, or the education institutions will have to have similar standards throughout. This is going to help in two ways. One is the bureaucracy at present what we have in terms of different category and therefore a lot of regulations etc and so on will be merged together. So the good points with UGC and good points with AICT will be taken together, and the best will be actually taken as a common fact in this. Number one. Number two, there will be another regulatory body which is coming for accreditation. Even this also will be a common accreditation for all. Now at present, actually, especially engineering institutions are going through two types of accreditation. One is the NAC, another is NBA. Both are similar but slightly different. And now if they are merging together, there will be one type of accreditation. So all institutions will have to go through this particular type of accreditation only. And again, once they make a single body to control everything, in fact, I should not use control, I would say monitor. That means they are going to regulate in terms of, the entry level regulations, the operation level regulations, and again, to excellence level regulations. So that means an institution, how they should excel. For example, all the institutions will be great based on the Excel level, and that will become very transparent. And this is going to help a lot, actually.
Thank you, sir, so much for your perspectives. I think so much for the beginning part of it, because this is a policy which is out, much more to understand. So I think you really give us a very, very in-depth understanding of the various nuances. We look forward to hosting you sometime soon with a lot more perspective, perhaps a joint discussion. On behalf of the Research Cell and Dayanand Sagar University, I would like to thank you for your time, and have a good evening, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for inviting me for this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.